The scene opens inside a sleek, modern airplane ready to take off from New York's bustling JFK airport. The hum of engines fills the cabin as passengers settle into their seats, flipping through magazines or scrolling on their phones. Among them is Vanessa, a tall, sharply dressed woman in her late 30s. Everything about her screams wealth: her designer handbag, her perfectly manicured nails, and the air of superiority she carries like an expensive perfume. She's seated in first class, where the seats are plush and the service is meant to cater to every whim. Mia, a warm and professional flight attendant in her early 40s, walks down the aisle with a practiced smile. Her dark skin glows under the soft cabin lights, and her calm demeanor puts nervous flyers at ease. When she reaches Vanessa's row, she greets her warmly, offering a glass of champagne and explaining the menu for the flight. But Vanessa barely looks up from her phone. Instead, she waves Mia off, saying she'll decide later. It's clear from the start that Vanessa isn't here to enjoy the flight. She's here because she expects perfection. As the plane taxis toward the runway, Vanessa starts making demands. First, it's about the temperature being too cold. Then, she complains that her seat isn't reclining properly, even though it's working fine. Mia handles each request with patience, adjusting the air vent, checking the seat mechanics, and apologizing unnecessarily. But Vanessa seems determined to find fault. Every interaction feels like a test, one Mia passes with quiet grace. The tension escalates when Vanessa finally decides what she wants: caviar. She snaps her fingers, a move that turns heads, and calls Mia over. "I'll have the caviar now," she says, her tone dripping with entitlement. Mia hesitates for just a moment, before gently explaining that caviar is no longer available due to a recent policy change. Vanessa's eyes narrow instantly. "What do you mean it's not available?" she snaps, her voice rising slightly. "You people always mess things up." Passengers nearby glance up from their books and screens, curious about the commotion. Mia keeps her composure, repeating the explanation calmly. But Vanessa isn't satisfied. She leans forward, her voice sharp and cutting. "Are you telling me I paid thousands of dollars for this ticket and I can't even get something as basic as caviar? Don't you know who I am?" The question hangs in the air, heavy with arrogance. Mia simply nods, maintaining her polite smile despite the growing unease in the cabin. It's clear that Vanessa isn't just upset about the caviar. It's deeper than that. To her, this flight isn't just transportation. It's a stage where she expects everyone to bow to her demands. And Mia, with her professionalism and quiet confidence, refuses to play the part Vanessa has scripted for her. The atmosphere grows, tense, like the calm before a storm. Passengers exchange knowing glances, sensing that something bigger is brewing. What started as a minor inconvenience is quickly spiraling into something far more explosive, and no one knows how far Vanessa will go to assert her dominance. Vanessa's frustration boils over as Mia continues to handle her complaints with unwavering calm. The lack of caviar becomes the tipping point for Vanessa, who sees it not just as a menu issue but as a personal affront. "You're doing this on purpose," she accuses, her voice louder now, sharp enough to cut through the hum of conversation in the cabin. Passengers glance up from their books and phones, curiosity piqued by the rising tension. Mia takes a deep breath, her training kicking in as she tries to de-escalate the situation. "Ms. Carter," she says softly, using Vanessa's last name to add a touch of formality. "I understand your disappointment, but the policy change applies to all passengers. I assure you, it's nothing personal." Her tone is measured, professional and respectful, everything one would expect from someone in her position. But Vanessa isn't interested in reason or logic. To her, Mia's calmness feels like indifference, even mockery. "You think I don't see what's happening here?" Vanessa fires back, leaning forward in her seat. "This wouldn't happen if I were sitting next to someone else. Someone different." Her implication hangs heavy in the air, laced with thinly veiled prejudice. A few passengers shift uncomfortably in their seats, sensing the undertone of her words. Others exchange glances, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. Mia doesn't flinch, though her jaw tightens ever so slightly, She has dealt with difficult passengers before, but there's something about Vanessa's tone that stings more than usual. Still, she keeps her focus on resolving the issue. "If there's anything else I can assist you with, please let me know," she offers, extending an olive branch. But Vanessa isn't ready to accept it. Instead, she doubles down, her voice carrying across the first-class cabin. "Oh, I'll tell you what you can do. You can stop treating me like I'm some second-rate customer." Her words are sharp, cutting through the polite veneer of the flight. Other passengers begin whispering among themselves, some shaking their heads in disapproval while others pull out their phones to discreetly record the unfolding drama. The atmosphere shifts. What was once a calm pre-flight routine has turned into a spectacle. The breaking point comes when Vanessa slams her hand against the armrest, causing a loud thud that startles nearby passengers. "I demand to speak to your supervisor right now," she shouts, her face flushed with anger. Several heads turn toward Mia, waiting to see how she'll respond. For a brief moment, the entire cabin seems frozen in time, the weight of Vanessa's tantrum pressing down on everyone. Mia steps back, slightly, giving herself space to think. She knows better than to engage further. It's clear Vanessa isn't looking for solutions anymore. She's looking for a fight. "I'll inform the captain of your concerns," Mia replies evenly, her voice steady despite the storm brewing around her. As she turns to walk away, Vanessa's patience snaps completely. "This is ridiculous," Vanessa exclaims, standing abruptly from her seat. In her rage, she points a finger at Mia, jabbing it in her direction. "You people always ruin everything. Is it because I'm white? Because I have money? What is it?" Her accusations grow wilder, more unhinged, drawing gasps from those seated nearby. The energy in the cabin shifts again, this time tinged with discomfort and disbelief. What started as a minor complaint has spiraled into something far darker, a confrontation fueled by entitlement and prejudice. Passengers watch silently, unsure of what will happen next. Will Vanessa calm down, or will she push things even further? And how much longer can Mia maintain her composure under such intense scrutiny? The tension in the air is palpable, thick enough to touch as the stage is, set for the inevitable explosion. The tension in the cabin reaches a boiling point as Vanessa's rage continues to escalate. Her accusations hang heavy in the air, and her piercing glare locks onto Mia, who stands just a few feet away, trying to maintain her composure. But Vanessa isn't done. She steps closer, her voice rising even higher. "You think you can just ignore me? Do you know how much I paid for this ticket?" She spits out, her tone laced with venom. The other passengers sit frozen, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. Some fidget nervously, while others glance at each other, silently urging someone to step in. Mia takes a small step back, holding up her hands slightly in a gesture of peace. "Ms. Carter, please return to your seat," she says firmly, but calmly. "For your safety and the safety of everyone on board, we need to follow protocol." Her words are professional, but there's an edge of warning in her tone, a reminder that rules exist for a reason. Yet Vanessa doesn't seem to hear her. Instead, she narrows her eyes, her chest heaving with anger. "I'm not going anywhere until you fix this," Vanessa snaps, gesturing wildly toward the empty space where she believes her caviar should have been. Her movements are erratic, almost frantic, as if she's determined to make a scene no matter what it takes. Passengers exchange uneasy glances, their discomfort growing by the second. A man seated nearby whispers to his companion, "This is getting out of hand." And then it happens. In a flash of uncontrolled fury, Vanessa raises her hand, and before anyone can react, her palm connects sharply with Mia's face. The sound of the slap echoes through the cabin, sharp and jarring, followed by a stunned silence. For a moment, time seems to stop. Everyone freezes, their eyes wide with shock. Mia staggers slightly, her hand instinctively reaching up to touch her cheek. Her expression shifts, not to anger but to quiet disbelief, as though she can't quite believe what just happened. The cabin erupts into chaos. Nearby passengers gasp audibly, some covering their mouths in horror. Someone mutters, "Oh my God," under their breath, while another exclaims, "Did she really just do that?" Phones are pulled out, cameras rolling as people scramble to capture the aftermath of the unthinkable act. Other flight attendants rush over, their faces etched with concern and alarm. One of them gently guides Mia away from Vanessa, ensuring she's safe, while another tries to calm the now furious crowd. Vanessa, realizing the magnitude of what she's done, freezes momentarily, her hand still hovering mid-air. Her face flushes, bright red, but it's unclear whether it's from embarrassment or lingering anger. She looks around the cabin, meeting the disapproving stares of her fellow passengers. Some shake their heads in disgust, while others whisper harshly about her behavior. A woman sitting across the aisle mutters loud enough for everyone to hear, "What a disgrace." Realizing the tide has turned against her, Vanessa begins to panic. She stammers, trying to justify her actions. I didn't mean to. She provoked me." But her excuses fall flat, swallowed by the collective judgment of those around her. Even the flight attendants, who are trained to remain neutral, can't hide their disapproval as they surround Mia, offering her support. As Mia steps aside to compose herself, the senior flight attendant approaches Vanessa, his voice firm and authoritative. "Ma'am, you need to sit down immediately. We will be filing an official report and law enforcement will be notified upon landing." His words hit Vanessa like a ton of bricks. Her bravado crumbles, replaced by fear and regret. She sinks back into her seat, her earlier confidence shattered. The mood in the cabin shifts once again, this time filled with a mix of relief and simmering resentment. Passengers murmur among themselves, discussing what they've witnessed. Some commend Mia for her professionalism, while others express outrage at Vanessa's actions. It's clear that the flight won't continue without consequences for both women. But for now, all eyes remain on Vanessa, whose world is beginning to unravel before her very eyes. The slap reverberates not just in the cabin, but in Vanessa's mind as she sits back in her seat, her chest rising and falling with panicked breaths. The weight of what she's done crashes over her like a tidal wave. She had acted out of anger, yes, but now the reality of her actions begins to sink in. Her face burns, not from embarrassment this time, but from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of consequences, and most of all, fear of losing control over the narrative she has always worked so hard to maintain. Meanwhile, Mia stands near the galley, flanked by two concerned flight attendants who offer her water and quiet words of support. Though visibly shaken, Mia refuses to let herself crumble. This isn't the first time she's faced disrespect on the job, but it's certainly one of the worst incidents. Still, she takes a deep breath, reminding herself that she did nothing wrong. If anything, she held her ground with grace, a fact that doesn't go unnoticed by many passengers. Back in her seat, Vanessa's mind races. She glances around the cabin, searching for any sign of sympathy or understanding, but finds none. Instead, she sees phones pointed in her direction, capturing every second of her public meltdown. A teenage girl seated nearby whispers loudly to her mother, "Mom, is she going to jail?" Vanessa winces at the comment, sinking lower into her seat. For someone used to admiration and privilege, this moment feels utterly foreign and unbearable. It doesn't take long for the pilot's voice to crackle over the intercom, breaking the tense silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, we regret to inform you that due to an unforeseen disturbance on board, we will need to divert to the nearest airport. Your safety is our top priority, and we appreciate your patience during this time." The announcement sends ripples through the cabin. Some passengers groan in frustration, while others nod knowingly, their eyes darting toward Vanessa. One man mutters under his breath, "Good. She deserves whatever's coming to her." As the plane changes course, the senior flight attendant approaches Vanessa again, his expression stern. "Ma'am, I must remind you that assaulting a crew member is a federal offense. Authorities will be waiting for us upon landing." His words are matter of fact, leaving no room for negotiation. Vanessa's heart pounds in her chest. She opens her mouth to protest, but no sound comes out. Desperation takes hold, and she blurts out, "Please, don't call the police. It was a mistake. I didn't mean it." But her pleas fall on deaf ears. The decision has already been made. Word spreads quickly among the passengers that the plane is being diverted because of Vanessa's behavior. Social media lights up almost instantly, with videos of the altercation flooding platforms like Twitter and Instagram. Hashtags like Challenge Flight Shame and Respect Crew begin trending, amplifying the story far beyond the confines of the aircraft. Journalists start reaching out to the airline for statements, turning what began as a personal conflict into a national conversation about accountability and respect. Seated across the aisle, a businessman types furiously on his laptop, drafting an email to his colleagues explaining the delay. He adds a postscript. A passenger attacked a flight attendant. It was unbelievable and unacceptable. Others chime in online, sharing their outrage. One woman tweets, "I hope this serves as a wake-up call. Flight attendants work hard to keep us safe and comfortable. They deserve respect, not violence." For Vanessa, the growing attention feels suffocating. Every glance from another passenger feels like a dagger. Every whisper a reminder of how far she's fallen. She tries to compose herself, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, but there's no escaping the storm she created. As the plane descends toward the diversion airport, she looks out the window, watching the runway grow closer. Her hands tremble in her lap and tears stream down her face. Gone is the confident socialite who boarded the flight hours ago. In her place is a woman consumed by panic and regret. In contrast, Mia remains a picture of resilience. Surrounded by supportive co-workers and passengers, she begins to feel a sense of justice, not just for herself but for everyone who has ever been treated poorly, simply for doing their job. When the wheels touch down, signaling the end of the flight, the cabin erupts in spontaneous applause. It's clear where the passengers' loyalties lie, and Vanessa knows it. As law enforcement boards the plane, she buries her face in her hands, knowing her life will never be the same. As the plane comes to a halt at the diversion airport, the tension inside the cabin reaches a fever pitch. Passengers crane their necks to get a better view of what will happen next, their phones still recording as uniformed police officers step onto the aircraft. The sight of law enforcement sends a ripple through the cabin. Some passengers sit up straighter, eager to see justice served, while others glance nervously at Vanessa, who has visibly shrunk into her seat. Vanessa's face is pale, her mascara smudged from tears that continue to fall silently. She grips the armrests tightly, her knuckles white with fear. When the senior flight attendant points out her seat to the officers, all eyes turn toward her. One officer approaches calmly but firmly, his presence commanding immediate attention. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," he says, his tone neutral yet unyielding. Vanessa hesitates for a moment, then nods weakly, standing on shaky legs. The walk down the aisle feels endless for Vanessa. Every step is accompanied by whispers and stares from the passengers she once thought were beneath her notice. A middle-aged woman shakes her head disapprovingly as Vanessa passes, muttering loud enough for everyone to hear, "Shame on you." Others avoid eye contact altogether, their expressions ranging from disgust to pity. For Vanessa, it's a gauntlet of judgment she never imagined facing, least of all in front of so many strangers. Outside the plane, cameras flash as reporters gather near the terminal, alerted by social media posts about the incident. News outlets have already picked up snippets of video showing Vanessa's outburst, and hashtags like "Justice for Mia" dominate trending lists. Journalists shout questions at the police escorting Vanessa off the plane. What happened on board? Did you assault the flight attendant? Vanessa ducks her head, shielding her face with her hands as she's led away. Her designer clothes and expensive handbag seem laughably out of place under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. Back inside the cabin, Mia becomes the center of attention. Passengers applaud again, this time more enthusiastically, as she prepares to disembark alongside the rest of the crew. Some even approach her to offer hugs or words of encouragement. "You handled that beautifully," says an elderly man seated in first class, his voice filled with admiration. Another passenger presses a folded piece of paper into her hand. It's a note thanking her for her professionalism and strength. These small gestures remind Mia why she chose this career despite its challenges. It isn't just about serving drinks or managing logistics. It's about creating moments of kindness and humanity. even when met with hostility. Meanwhile, word spreads among the remaining passengers that Vanessa's family has hired a high-profile crisis management team to control the narrative. Text messages fly back and forth between friends and colleagues discussing how quickly her polished image is unraveling. Social media users dissect every detail of her behavior, comparing screenshots of her glamorous lifestyle posts with footage of her being escorted off the plane in handcuffs. Memes mocking her entitled attitude begin circulating online, further fueling the backlash. For Vanessa, the hours following her arrest blur together in a haze of shame and dread. Sitting in a holding cell, she reflects on how drastically her life has changed in such a short time. She thinks about the privileges she's always taken for granted, the ability to charm her way out of difficult situations, the assumption that people would defer to her status, and realizes they're slipping through her fingers. Her phone buzzes incessantly with calls from her agent, publicist, and panicked relatives, each voicemail adding another layer of stress. By the time evening falls, news anchors are analyzing the incident during primetime broadcasts. Pundits debate whether Vanessa's actions reflect broader societal issues around entitlement and racism, while experts weigh in on the legal ramifications of assaulting a flight attendant. The story takes on a life of its own, sparking conversations about workplace respect and accountability. Amidst the chaos, one thing remains clear. Vanessa's choices have consequences far beyond herself, and there's no turning back now. The holding cell is cold and sterile, the kind of place Vanessa has only ever seen in movies or news reports. She sits on a hard metal bench, her designer clothes now wrinkled and stained with sweat and tears. Her mind races as she replays the events of the past few hours over and over again. Each memory feels like a punch to the gut. The slap, the horrified stares of the passengers, the flashing cameras outside the plane. But most of all, she can't shake the image of Mia's face after the assault. Calm, composed, almost dignified despite everything Vanessa had thrown at her. Desperation takes hold as Vanessa realizes the full weight of what she's done. Her family's reputation, her carefully curated social media persona, her entire life. It's all unraveling before her eyes. When a police officer informs her that she'll have an opportunity to speak with Mia before being formally processed, Vanessa seizes it. She begs for a moment alone with the flight attendant, hoping against hope that she can undo some of the damage. Mia agrees to meet her, though not without hesitation. The two women are led into a small conference room at the airport police station, their surroundings starkly different from the luxurious first-class cabin where they'd clashed just hours earlier. Vanessa looks disheveled and broken, a far cry from the polished woman who boarded the flight. Her voice trembles as she begins to speak. "Mia, I don't know what came over me," she stammers, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I didn't mean any of it, I swear." Mia listens silently, her arms crossed over her chest. Her expression is unreadable, neither angry nor forgiving. For someone who endured such public humiliation, she seems remarkably composed. When Vanessa pauses to wipe away fresh tears, Mia finally speaks. "You don't get to decide how this ends for me," she says quietly but firmly. "What you did wasn't about caviar or seats or anything else. It was about power, about thinking you could treat me however you wanted because of who you are and who you think I am." Vanessa flinches at the truth in Mia's words. She tries to interrupt, offering excuses and promises, money, gifts, anything to make things right. But Mia cuts her off. "It's not about money," she says, her voice steady. "It's about respect. You took that away from me today in front of everyone, and no amount of apologies or bribes will change that." Her words hit Vanessa like a freight train. For the first time, she begins to see herself through someone else's eyes, not as the glamorous socialite she's always pretended to be, but as someone who let anger and entitlement blind her to basic human decency. Tears stream down her face as she whispers, "I'm so sorry, please. Please forgive me." But Mia doesn't respond. Instead, she stands up, signaling that the conversation is over. As Mia leaves the room, Vanessa collapses into the chair, sobbing uncontrollably. She knows Mia isn't going to drop the charges, and deep down she understands why. Forgiveness isn't something that can be demanded or bought. It has to be earned. And Vanessa hasn't earned it. Not yet, anyway. Outside the room, Mia takes a deep breath, leaning against the wall for support. Despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her, she feels a strange sense of clarity. This moment isn't just about her. It's about every person who has been treated unfairly because of their race, gender, or profession. By standing her ground, Mia has become more than just a flight attendant. She's a symbol of resilience and dignity. Back in the holding cell, Vanessa stares at the blank walls, grappling with the reality of her situation. The woman who once commanded attention and admiration now finds herself utterly alone, stripped of her privilege and forced to confront the ugliness within herself. As the hours tick by, one thought keeps replaying in her mind. What have I done? The courtroom is packed when Vanessa's case finally goes to trial. Reporters and curious onlookers fill the rows, their pens poised and cameras ready to capture every detail of the proceedings. The media frenzy surrounding the incident has only grown in the week since the flight, with debates raging online about privilege, accountability, and justice. For many, this trial isn't just about one woman's actions. It's a referendum on how society handles those who abuse their power. Vanessa walks into the room flanked by her high-priced lawyers, her appearance carefully curated to project humility. Gone are the designer outfits. Instead, she wears a simple navy dress and minimal makeup. Her hair is pulled back into a low ponytail, and she clutches a tissue in trembling hands. She avoids making eye contact with anyone, especially Mia, who sits across the aisle surrounded by colleagues and supporters from the airline. Despite the gravity of the situation, Mia looks calm, her posture upright and confident, as if she knows the truth will speak for itself. As the judge enters and the proceedings begin, Vanessa's lawyer argues that the slap was an isolated moment of poor judgment brought on by stress and exhaustion. He emphasizes her lack of prior criminal record and paints her as a victim of overzealous social media outrage. My client made a mistake, a serious one, but she is not a monster, he pleads. She deserves a chance to learn from this, experience, and make amends. But the prosecution doesn't let these arguments stand unchallenged. They present video footage from the flight, showing Vanessa's escalating behavior and the undeniable moment of violence. Passengers who witnessed the altercation testify about the fear and discomfort they felt during the incident. One man recounts how Vanessa's shouting disrupted the entire cabin, while another describes the collective gasp after the slap. Their testimonies paint a vivid picture of a woman consumed by entitlement and anger. When it's Mia's turn to take the stand, the room falls silent. Her voice is steady as she recounts the events of that day, describing how she tried repeatedly to de-escalate the situation only to be met with hostility and prejudice. I didn't provoke her, Mia says firmly, looking directly at Vanessa for the first time. I was just doing my job. Her words resonate deeply, not just with the jury but with everyone in the room. Even some of Vanessa's supporters shift uncomfortably in their seats, realizing the defense's narrative doesn't hold up against the evidence. After hours of testimony, the judge delivers the verdict, guilty of assault and racial harassment. Vanessa is sentenced to 6 months of probation and ordered to attend mandatory anger management and diversity training sessions. While the sentence could have been harsher, it's clear the judge wants to give her an opportunity to reform rather than punish her indefinitely. As the gavel strikes, Vanessa bows her head, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, there's no audience to impress, no cameras flashing, no reporters shouting questions. It's just her, alone with the weight of her actions. Outside the courthouse, Mia addresses the crowd of reporters gathered to cover the outcome. This isn't about revenge or punishment, she says, her voice strong yet measured. It's about accountability. Everyone deserves to feel safe and respected at work, regardless of their job or background. I hope this case reminds people that kindness and empathy matter more than status or wealth. Her statement earns applause from the crowd and later, hashtags like crying accountability Matters trend alongside messages of support for Mia. Meanwhile, Vanessa retreats to her family estate, where she begins the long process of rebuilding, or perhaps dismantling, the life she once knew. Whether she truly changes remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: her actions have sparked a national conversation that won't fade anytime soon. Months have passed since the trial, and life has taken on a new rhythm for both Vanessa and Mia. For Vanessa, the days are quieter now, but they're also heavier. She spends most of her time at her family's estate, far from the glitz and glamour she once thrived in. Her social media accounts, once filled with photos of luxurious vacations and designer outfits, remain inactive, a stark contrast to the curated perfection she used to project. Friends and acquaintances have distanced themselves, uncomfortable with the scandal that clings to her name like a shadow. The anger management and diversity training sessions are challenging for Vanessa, forcing her to confront truths about herself she'd rather ignore. At first she resists, dismissing the exercises as unnecessary or overly harsh. But over time something shifts. She begins to see patterns in her behavior: how often she lashed out when things didn't go her way, how quickly she dismissed people based on their appearance or role in her life. It's humbling, even painful. But for the first time, Vanessa starts to wonder if change is possible, not just for others' approval, but for herself. Meanwhile, Mia's life has transformed in ways she never expected. The incident on the flight turned her into an accidental advocate, someone whose story resonated with countless individuals across the globe. Invitations pour in from organizations eager to hear her speak about workplace respect and resilience. At first, Mia hesitates. She's always been more comfortable behind the scenes than in the spotlight. But eventually she agrees to share her journey. Standing on stages before large audiences, she speaks not just about what happened on that fateful flight, but about the broader issues it highlighted: systemic inequality, the importance of treating service workers with dignity, and the power of standing firm in the face of injustice. Her words inspire action. Airlines begin reviewing their policies to better protect employees from harassment, while advocacy groups use her story to push for stronger laws protecting workers in high-stress industries. Passengers start speaking up more often when they witness mistreatment, refusing to stay silent in moments of tension. Slowly but surely, Mia's experience becomes a catalyst for meaningful change, a legacy far greater than she ever imagined. Back in Vanessa's world, whispers of redemption linger. Some speculate that her public shaming might lead to genuine growth, though opinions remain divided. A few former friends cautiously reach out, curious to see if she's truly changed. In response, Vanessa volunteers at local shelters and community centers, using her privilege to give back in small but impactful ways. Whether these efforts stem from sincere remorse or a desire to repair her image is unclear, and perhaps irrelevant. What matters is that she's taking steps, however tentative, toward becoming someone who contributes rather than takes. As the months stretch into a year, the two women cross paths one final time, not in person, but through the ripple effects of their stories. During a televised interview, Mia is asked about Vanessa and whether she believes people can truly change. After a pause, Mia smiles softly and says, "I think everyone deserves a chance to learn and grow. Accountability isn't just about punishment. It's about creating space for transformation. If Vanessa uses this moment to reflect and improve, then maybe something good can come from all of this." Her answer sparks reflection among viewers, many of whom admit they hadn't considered forgiveness as part of justice. For Vanessa, hearing Mia's words feels like both a challenge and a lifeline, an acknowledgement that her future isn't defined solely by her past mistakes. Though the road ahead remains uncertain, one thing is clear: neither woman will forget the day their lives intersected so dramatically, nor the lessons it taught them and the world about accountability, resilience, and hope.